fighter, are you ready? Are you ready? Let's do this.
Hi, family. Welcome back to another episode of the Gold Corner. Really, guys, and I'm going to say this every single show. And again, I might sound like a broken record, but just wanted to say thank you for all the love and support. All the new subscribers, thank you so much. This channel is created to spread childhood cancer awareness, to be able to speak about the warriors that once battled and are now home, the ones that are currently battling, and unfortunately, the ones that are going to be fighting this in the future. So I just wanted to create this channel again, this platform. I wanted to create a family environment where we can come and speak about our warriors and speak about the great foundations that a lot of us parents have created to help, spread childhood cancer awareness, and us going through it firsthand and knowing how it is. So again, just wanted to say thank you. If you haven't done so, just hit the little gold ribbon here in the corner of the video. That's going to subscribe you. Listen to the stories that have already been featured and share these stories. Let's make these stories go viral of these great warriors that are, again, like I said, fighting it, and the ones that have fought it and will be remembered as the heroes and the warriors that they were. So thank you all once again. This week, special story, another special story. I had the opportunity. This is a foundation that I was actually following on social media. And just 2 weeks ago, I had the pleasure of being directed to Michelle Love, who's joining us today. She created the Stand Firm Foundation, and she's going to be speaking a little bit more about it right now. I actually got in touch with Michelle from another parent that was actually featured here in the Gold Corner, and it was on episode 19. Which was the warrior story of Miranda, the Eckert family. They are from Denver, North Carolina, and it's actually a city that I had never heard of. But now this is actually the third family that has been featured, and I love the community that they have there, the support. I've had the Lincoln family talk about Warrior Mikey and the Eckert family talk about Warrior Miranda. Well, now we have another story from that community, and it's just great. Again, I'm not going to speak much about it because I want Michelle to talk to us about the young man, the warrior that was her son and continues to be. So, Michelle, I just wanted to say thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of this the channel of this family, this uh, broken family, but we're broken together, and we're here for each other, and we're here to help each other out. Thank you for what you're doing for childhood cancer awareness, and you're going to be speaking also to us towards the end about the foundation you created. So, Michelle, thank you so much for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Joel. I've been reaching out and giving me the opportunity to talk about BJ for one. I know you are keenly aware that it's so comforting to be able to speak about your child in a safe place too, that people aren't made to feel awkward or whatever about you. I mean, you still love your child, so why would you not want to talk about them? So I'll just start by telling BJ's story. He was an athlete. He loved basketball. He loved football. He was always the tallest kid in his class. He started off playing football at a Christian church, and then he liked it so much we moved him to a rec league in town. So he was playing in 2012 at Boger City Rec League, and they only had, I don't know, about 12 kids on the team, so they got to play both sides. They did a lot of conditioning, and BJ just wasn't improving with the conditioning like the other kids was. They would run around the field, and he couldn't keep up. He would always be the last one, and it would be worse each time. In the group exercises, he would get big headaches and pounding headaches, and it just we just thought, well, maybe he just is out of shape. This is really kicking his butt. all these 2-hour practices every day, and he just needs to put more time into it. So that didn't really make a difference. One practice right before Labor Day in 2012, his coach asked me to run with him. And so I told him we would do that we were headed to the beach for that weekend, for Labor Day weekend, and we would run on the beach together. And I'm not a runner, but I would do it for him. So we got out there one morning at the beach, and I heard whistling noises coming from him as he was breathing. So I was like, well, maybe he's got exercise-induced asthma, so I decided right then and there that I was going to take him to an asthma allergy doctor. But it was really weird. Like I said, I'm not a runner, but I was outpacing him. I had to slow down. He couldn't keep up. So we stopped, and I got an appointment for him to go in on Wednesday. That was on the weekend. So got him to the doctor, and he didn't have. They did the exercise test. He didn't have asthma, but he was allergic to a whole bunch of stuff. So we were scheduled to go right back to that doctor the next week. Well, I had been communicating with his teacher at school. He had just started 6th grade. He was tired all the time, but there again, I'm like, well, he just started 6th grade. He's doing 2 hours of practice for football every night. Kind of made sense. Plus, he was a little bruised, but so were all the other boys. It's tackle football. But just keep an eye out on him. And so I emailed his teacher and just asked her, what's he acting like in class? And she emailed back and said, she said, actually, I was going to email you because he has laid his head down on his desk a few times, but he was pale today, so pale that he looked green to me. And I was like, yeah, he did. He looks pale to me too. So I'm trying to put all these symptoms together, and just scheduled an appointment with his regular doctor, because I was like, maybe he's developed some kind of anemia, because that kind of matched the paleness, the tiredness, the bruising, it just kind of matched, like the extreme headache on exertion. So I'm like, maybe a few iron pills and he'll be all right. We'll see. Get his blood drawn. So happened to be that got the appointment the same day we were going back to the asthma doctor. So we did the asthma doctor, and then we were scheduled for his regular doctor. The asthma doctor decided that he had vocal cord dysfunction, and that was the wheezing, whistling noise that I heard while we were running on the beach. That was going to be fixed by a couple of visits with a speech therapist. So we were all excited, leaving her office. He's got some allergies. Who don't? He doesn't have exercise-induced asthma, so that was awesome. And the vocal cord dysfunction was going to be fixed with just a couple of visits to a speech therapist. So we headed to the doctor after that, and he got his blood drawn, just a real quick checkup. Everything seemed fine. The next morning, I worked in Charlotte at the time at the ambulance service for the big county that includes Charlotte. And I just got to work, and I got a phone call, and it was BJ's doctor, our family doctor. And she said, his hemoglobin is 5.8. It's supposed to be between 12 and 16. 12 and 16. and I need you to get him to the emergency department because we need to find out why. So I scrambled out of work and headed right back up to Denver to pick him up at school, and then we headed right back down to Charlotte to Levine Children's Hospital. We were going to the children's emergency department, and his doctor was gonna call ahead and let them know that we were coming. It was the weirdest thing. I don't know why I'm going to even include this, but we were on the highway and heard a noise, and I had a flat tire. First flat tire in my entire life, while we're headed to the hospital to find out what's wrong with BJ. And honestly, I didn't even know. I couldn't give any kind of a AAA, any kind of idea of where we really were. I could, well, there's the water tower up here, and I know I crossed 85, but an angel saw us out there on the highway and came and found my spare tire. I think women should really know where their spare tire is in their car. A lot of times it's hidden. But anyway, found my spare tire. It was flat. They don't pump them up. So he took my spare, took it back to his work and pumped it up and brought it back and put it on. And we headed back down, headed on our way down to Charlotte, and got down there. They immediately took him back and drew more blood. We had already, they had already knew what his hemoglobin was the day before, but they drew blood again. And, we're just kind of in there, not knowing what's going on and not thinking anything serious is wrong. And, the emergency room doctor came in with a sonogram machine, and he said, well, I just want to check his spleen and his heart. And so he checked his heart first, and he said, well, that looks good. So I was like, okay, good. And then he put the wand down on BJ's spleen, and he said, well, that's not what I wanted to see. And I was like, well, what does that mean? And he said, well, his spleen is enlarged. And so I said, well, what causes that? And he said, he looked at me for a second, and then he said, well, leukemia. And he said some other things, but I didn't hear him past leukemia. I was just shocked by that word. And, I know he knew exactly what it was at that moment. He just wasn't the one to tell me. And BJ and I always have had this, we were so close. We were kindred souls. We knew what each other was thinking, didn't have to speak words. We knew by looking at each other exactly what the other one was thinking. It was always like that. And we were just incredibly close. And he reads me like a book, an easy book. And so I'm really trying not to freak out by that. And the doctor just kind of puts everything away and he leaves. And then a couple of other doctors come in the room a little bit later, and I read their name tags, and I knew it was pediatric hematology oncology. And they wanted to talk to me down the hallway. So BJ did not want me to leave him. He vocally, he was like, no, please. And I said, BJ, I'll be right back. I'll be right back. I walked out of the room and down the hallway behind these two doctors, and I honestly don't even know how I put one foot in front of the other, because it's like a dream now. But they took me into this room, and I was told that the doctor was sure that BJ, sure by 99% that BJ had leukemia. So, and then he said, well, because I started like to cry and all that, and just in unbelief, he said, I want you to hear me tell you that this is curable, curable, curable. And so I don't even know what else. I mean, he told me, we can get kids in remission within the first 28 days. And there was some stuff, other stuff that they told me, but all I wanted to do was get back to BJ, and I really wanted to take him out and run away. But what I held on to in that conversation was that he was 99% sure. And so that's what I left going, okay, well, he can be wrong. I mean, he's only 99% sure. There is that chance where he could be wrong. And so that's what I lived on for the next day or two. We were admitted right away. He needed blood. His hemoglobin had fell even more, and he needed blood. So they admitted him up on the Levine Children's Hospital up on the 11th floor, where they keep all the cancer kids. And he immediately got his very first blood transfusion. I had pulled that recliner up right beside of his bed, and I'm laying there watching for 4 hours the color come back into his face. There's just so much to be said for people who donate blood. Kids need that. Cancer patients need that. In fact, cancer patients are the number one recipients of blood donation. So anyway, so I'm still, that 1%. When somebody comes in to tell me that they need to, I need to sign paperwork to get his chemo started, I was really confused. I'm like, well, does he have that? And she was like, well, yeah, she was confused that I was asking the question. Anyway, it was just a whirlwind of, we've got to do these things right now, and you could hardly even breathe. He felt so much better after the blood. It was amazing. We stayed in the hospital for 7 or 8 days. That initial stint, he developed diabetes from one of the chemos, so we had to stay a little bit longer. And I learned how to give shots and test insulin and test blood sugar, and give him insulin shots. So the first year of treatment was tough. He didn't go back to school. That was one of the toughest things for him. He wanted to go back to school, and he wanted to play football. The season had just started, and he wanted to play. And when they told him he couldn't play and he couldn't go back to school, that was the first time he cried. And he was 11. He was 11 years old when he was diagnosed. So we did homeschool. The teacher came and actually his 6th grade teacher came to our house and did school for him for all of 6th grade, and he did great. And first year was really tough chemo wise, and after that first 28 days though, remission to me doesn't mean anything. Remission itself in the definition is 5%, and we were looking for less than 0.01, and his MRD didn't come back less than 0.01. It came back more than 0.01. So he got put into a category, a very high risk category, but because of his age, it was very, very high risk category for relapse. But he did well. The second year, he started football again at the end of summer 6 into 7th grade, and he was still bald, but he was playing, and he went back to school. It was tough on him, but he did it. And then 8th grade, he was looking normal. He had hair again. He was tall. He was probably 6'3" at the time, 14 years old. In fact, the cleats that I bought him for football that year, because he played for the middle school, they were a size 14. They went from my entire arm. Oh, he was so tall. He was such a good kid. He didn't let cancer get him down. We had conversations in the very beginning. I said, BJ, people are going to watch how we handle this. And we have to trust that God's plan, he knows what's going to happen, and we trust in that, and that's the only way to go. And we can't let it get us down. We can't let it change who we are. And he really took that to heart, and he didn't let it change who he was. He was always laid back and loved to prank people and play jokes, and even the hospital, he would play jokes on his nurses all the time, especially the night nurses, because he had a hard time going to sleep. But I'll have to tell one of those stories. One of our favorite nurses, she was being trained, and he knew that she was new. So she comes in for 4 a.m. labs and puts the thermometer in his mouth to check his temperature, and he clamps down on it. And he wouldn't let it go. And she's very confused because she can't get the thermometer out. And then he let it go, and of course then he laughs. He was very proud of himself for jokes that he would play on people. But anyway, so 8th grade, back to playing football, back to playing basketball. He was a center for basketball, and he played on the line for football. And but anyway, so he did football, and he did 2 seasons of basketball. During that second season of basketball, he was going back to the hospital for his appointments, like every month at that point. And so we had our regular appointment this particular day, and it happened to be about 2 weeks after he had ran a 5K, the Keep Pounding 5K for the Carolina Panthers. He was the featured patient for the Keep Pounding 5K at the stadium in Charlotte. So he had done that. He just played. He'd be playing basketball all the time. We went to his regular appointment, and they told me that some things didn't look right. So they went ahead and let us go home, and they were going to call us later and let us know, because I needed to pick up my daughter from school, and BJ was going to get a haircut. So I got the phone call in the car, and Carly was in the back seat, and BJ was in the front seat. And like I said, BJ reads me like a book. And I get the call, and I'm trying not to let on. The doctor said that it was back. So BJ Carly has no idea what's going on. She was 9 years old. No, 10, 9 or 10 years old at the time. And so BJ starts screaming no and punching the seat in between his legs. Just, man, gut wrenching. She realizes that she picks up on things. I hadn't told her anything, but she knew we'd been to the doctor that morning, and I get a phone call. BJ's freaking out. No, she knew. And she starts wailing in the back seat, crying. And I mean, it was the worst. It was the worst noises I've heard ever come out of either of my kids. It was terrible. It just ripped my heart out to know that BJ was going to have to fight even harder, and that it wasn't over. We only had like 7 more visits left for his treatments to be over, and now we're starting again. So we head home. He decided he wanted to go ahead. I think it was Memorial Day weekend. It was May 22nd, that 2015, when we got that news. And it was like a couple weeks before 8th grade was over. He decided he wanted to go to school and get work so he could keep up with school for the last couple weeks of school. So I take him to school, and I didn't really tell anybody anything. He hadn't told. I didn't know he was telling his teachers, but he went back to his classrooms to ask his teachers for work, and he ended up telling them. He wasn't even going to tell them. And of course they were upset. He was upset. They prayed around him in the hallway, and I took him back home, and we packed up and went back to the hospital. He didn't want to wait another hour to go get this thing started again. So that's what we did. That was BJ. He was such a warrior, such a fighter. In 8th grade, they do the career testing, and he had tested a protective career like a police officer or military, and he had decided that he wanted to go into the military, and he wrote his paper on becoming a Navy SEAL. Well, so the day that he started, that he relapsed, I started the Facebook page. It was called Cure for BJ Round 2 to start with. Before that, I had a Caring Bridge, and we kind of kept our fight pretty contained. It was quiet. It was a quiet fight. But once he relapsed, fight was on, and I needed more people to know about it and pray for him. And that was my goal in doing that Facebook page, that he needed prayer, big time prayer. And so I started that, and anyway, we I don't even know where I was going with that. Anyway, we just headed on with the fight, and so I had posted on his Facebook that he had wanted to be a Navy SEAL. I guess that's how it happened, because I had some people reach out to me from the SEAL community, and they were interested. And I mean, there was somebody from Washington, I think, that sent BJ his own Trident, and some other things. Some military people would send him stuff all the time, and he loved it. I mean, he got challenge coins all the time, and he would take those with him to his appointments, and he would gain, he would get strength from those challenge coins, and the and the love that was sent along with them. And so he did everything. He had every chemo he could have possibly had from May till August or September, and nothing was working. We were trying to get him down enough to get a bone marrow transplant. And so because nothing was working, I mean, he wasn't, I don't think they got him down lower than 11% of still having blast in his bone marrow. So to make the bone marrow transplant successful, it has to be, under 0.01. So we had to do something else. So a clinical trial came up that he actually qualified for. So we ended up going to Duke. Not our favorite time at all. There were lots of reasons for that, but BJ just, we all thought that this was going to be his cure. It was a CAR T trial. At the time, it was a trial. Now it's FDA approved. But BJ was the second patient that had that trial at Duke. We knew the first patient. She was also a patient at Levine Children's, and she had done well. In fact, she was able to leave there right before we came up. For all his testing and to stay. We ended up staying at the Ronald McDonald House in Durham before BJ was, admitted. They did the pheresis to get his white blood cells, to send them off to the lab to train them to fight the cancer cells. And their goal was 2 million cells, and BJ's only netted 200,000. So he didn't get a big portion of what he could have gotten if his body wasn't so already ravaged by chemotherapy. But anyway, so that was horrible times. I mean, I almost lost him several times up there. His heart stopped beating for 8 seconds in the PICU. Scared everybody to death. They never understood why that happened. I mean, medication that stopped his ability to speak. I demanded that they take him off of that, and he ended up gaining his speech back. It was terrible. I mean, the mouth sores that he had, they wouldn't let him drink. His mouth was cracked open and bleeding inside, just all over. It was terrible. He had hallucinations. His fever was like 106 days on end, and they would give him liquid Tylenol to try to combat the fever. But, his body was trying to fight this cancer, and the numbers weren't looking so great. And, I'm up there next to his bed all the time, praying. And, it was horrible times. My daughter, they wouldn't let siblings stay in the room like they do at Levine. So she had to stay at the Ronald McDonald House. Thankfully, I had a very good friend, my best friend, come up, leave her family, and come up and stay with my daughter in the Ronald McDonald House and bring her in and take care of her while I'm taking care of BJ and making sure BJ gets what he needed. And, I can't even I can't even tell you how horrible those times were. But the doctor wanted to pull the plug on the trial. He said that the numbers were not heading in the right direction. I was looking at the numbers and I was seeing a different perspective, and I told him I thought he needed to wait and to please call the head of the research project in at CHOP. And so he did that. He talked to him about BJ and showed him all the numbers, and he also thought he should wait and not pull the plug yet. So I think it was like the next day the numbers started to plateau, and they plateaued for a little while until they took right back off. And that was when we all knew that it didn't work. So I just remember the feeling of just utter desperation, just desperation. We thought that was going to be our cure, that we were going to go up there to this fancy Duke hospital and, being Carolina Tar Heel fans that we were, and being put in that Duke hospital wasn't the best, but anyway, we had to go home. And so BJ was transported by ambulance from Durham back to Charlotte. I rode with him, and two and a half hours of knowing that what are we going to do now? We've left what we went for. It didn't work. Now what? So we got to Levine, and BJ's abdomen is distended. It was huge. He wasn't in good shape at all. And so we get down there. He's settled in. His doctor, his regular doctor, which I won't say his name, he comes in and he just says, there's nothing else we can do. And I was just like, what do you mean? There's got to be something else. And he's like, well, we have 3 options. We can do blinatumomab, which I probably wouldn't start right now because that's risky. We have steroids that could help knock some of the white blood cells down, or we can do nothing. And I got pissed when he said do nothing. I'm like, you do know who we are, right? We don't just do nothing. We're not ready to give up and do nothing. It really made me angry. And so the option then at that point was the steroids. So he went on Decadron, and it was working to knock down his white cells. His abdomen went back down. And so the goal for that was to get him to a place where he could start blinatumomab. So, and that's exactly what happened. He got put on that. That's a hard medicine is in itself too. It was, you have to go to the PICU for a while just to be monitored even more. For the first little bit while you're on that. And so we did that, and he did well with it. Got to be put back up in the on the 11th floor to stay. By this time it was, Christmas of 2015. And we spent Christmas there, and BJ was doing pretty good. But when it's time for a second round of blinatumomab, there were things that were not not, not right. His gallbladder, they said that he needed his gallbladder removed, but his platelet count was so low. All these things were happening. We would pray and things would get better. And then things would turn for the worst again. And we had people who would come to the hospital and pray around him. And so I missed a part, because when we got back to Charlotte the next day, he was not in good shape, but a team of SEALs came and the news media came, and BJ was made an honorary Navy SEAL that day. And that meant so much to him. And those men didn't leave his life. They stayed. We had several that would come and just sit with them and talk to him. And we've had one that came, and he's still active, so I couldn't take pictures. And he sat and talked with BJ, and I left the room so they could talk whatever shop they wanted to talk. So he thoroughly enjoyed that. The guy drove from Virginia down to Charlotte, and Virginia Beach down to Charlotte to spend some time with BJ. These men were amazing. And they never stopped. So the second round of the blinatumomab didn't do anything either. So it was, it was time for us to, figure out something else. And at the time, we were felt like we were being led down a natural path. There were things that you could do naturally to combat some of the things, even the cancer itself. And so that was going to be our focus, was the natural methods. And so BJ was released on February 20th, I think it was, and to go home with hospice care. Actually, it's called Kids Path. That killed me. I didn't want that. They make it sound better by calling it Kids Path, but it's hospice. And the ladies, the staff there, that would come, they were amazing. I still have them in my life now. So it was not them; it was just the whole scenario of that's where we were, and it hurt. But yet we both still had faith. Toward the end, I would read, it really felt like a spiritual war, more so than anything else. So, BJ would want me to read to him. So I would read Ephesians 6 to him, the armor of God verses, and we would armor up. And, because it really felt like that there was some force trying to rob us of our joy, and it was totally a spiritual warfare. And so anyway, we got home. That was a little tough. That transition was really tough. Even though he wanted to be there, we had our two dogs, little miniature poodles, and they loved him. And in fact, one of them, we snuck into the hospital several times. He was more like a human than a dog. So Charlie Brown got to spend the night with BJ at the hospital several times, which made BJ feel better, and the nurses didn't care. I guess they think at that point, whatever to, raise your spirits. So anyway, we're home, and his birthday's coming up. His birthday was March the 4th, and he was gonna be 15. And somebody told Deborah Norville about BJ, and I got a phone call from her from Inside Edition, and she wanted to do something for him. So, BJ really wasn't a big idolizer of any kind of celebrity or sports figure. So I just told her, some of the people that he liked, like The Rock, and I think that might have been more me. But anyway, so she sent him a bunch of things for his birthday, and even had The Rock do a shout out on his Instagram for BJ for his birthday. And she sent a film crew. We got an advanced copy of MI3 and Mission Impossible 3, and we were going to do an outdoor movie for BJ for his birthday, and with that. And so that's what we did. And they were here and they filmed, and so that was on his birthday. And then on the next day was the 5th. That was when his party was. So he really needed to go to the hospital to have more blood. He was looking really pale. He was really tired. And we had the hospice lady come out and draw blood, and those labs came back that his hemoglobin, his blood count was really low. He needed blood. But I told BJ, I said, it's up to you, because we can have your party another day, or we can go to the hospital. It takes, it would take 8 hours to do the blood. And he didn't want to do that. He wanted to have his party. Some of his friends were coming over, and his close friends, and he wanted to have his party. So that's what we did. And everybody had a good time. BJ loved having everybody there, and all the Navy SEALs came. We had 3 cakes. It was crazy. It had a room full of people, and he didn't feel good, but he really enjoyed it. And so everybody left, and he told his best friend bye. He'll see him tomorrow. And my husband at the time carried him to bed, because BJ couldn't walk at that point. He was too weak. He hurt all the time. Even though he didn't want to take pain medicine, he wouldn't take pain medicine. But his bones were hurting from all the cancer that was pushing inside there. So got him in bed, and I would usually sleep in the bed next to him. Since we came home from the hospital, that's what I did. That particular night, I made a pallet on the floor next to him, because he had positioned himself where I'm like, I don't really want to touch him, because he's hurting so bad. So some Saturday night and Sunday morning, he woke me up, and he was making a noise, and I raised up. I'm like, are you okay? And I checked his pulse ox, and it was low, and his heart rate was really fast. And I tried calling Kids Path because that was what I was supposed to do, and they didn't answer. And I called a couple times, and so I decided that I was just going to call 911. So I did, and they came, loaded BJ up, and we went to down to Charlotte to the hospital, and we got into the emergency department down there, and things weren't good. His oxygen level was low, and Um, Ended up his hemoglobin was like 3. He really needed blood. But for somebody like BJ, who'd had, I don't even know how many blood transfusions at that point, he didn't have a blood type anymore. So they had to have a special blood for him, which takes longer to get. And so they told me, like, we can give him, some that we have, but we'll never be able to do it again. And I was like weighing these things, and so I was just like, I don't care, just give him blood, because to me, that's what he needed then, there, right. He needed it yesterday, but he wanted to experience his birthday, which I'm glad I didn't take that away from him. You don't know what what would have happened. But so they transferred us up to PICU, started giving him that blood, and the emergency doctor was in there from the children's hospital, and BJ needed to be on CPAP. So they started, the respiratory therapist started trying to put the CPAP on him, and he started fighting it, and he said, "Get this thing off of me, I can't breathe." And that was the last words that he ever said. He was gone right after that. My daughter and I were on either side of him, and he was gone. He fought up to the very end, just like he said he would. Just like we both agreed that we would do for each other. So they wanted me to go, out of the room a little after, and they kept Carly in there, and she helped the child life specialist clean him up and take prints of his hands and his feet, and cast his hand in plaster cast, and yeah, and she was 11, and so people had come to the hospital, my friends they knew, but the ride home without him, I mean, I never thought I would leave him there. I'd never left him. So, 6 months to the day after BJ took his trip to heaven, we came up with our foundation was actually formed. Our corporation was formed. We got our letter back from the state, and it had formed on September the 6th. We chose the name Stand Firm Warrior Foundation. In honor, in remembrance of the fact that BJ was a warrior, the fact that he stood firm in his faith, and it was all about the armor of God versus and standing firm. That's what our foundation is. That's what we're named for. We had toyed with different names to start with, and BJ's foundation or whatever, but I'm like, it's so much bigger. It's so much bigger than BJ. As big as he was, his personality was so big, but this story is so much bigger, and the work that we do, the work that we want to do, is so much bigger than just my child. His Inside Edition video aired on, I think it was Tuesday after he passed away on Sunday. So that's out there on the internet. But so with the Stand Firm Warrior Foundation, we're still geared toward that natural, supportive medicine, the alternative, complementary therapies. BJ was the first patient at Levine Children's Hospital to receive Reiki treatments. A friend of mine is actually a Reiki master, and her business partner were working to get into the hospital. They were already doing things at a satellite hospital and seeing really good results. And she would come to the hospital and give BJ Reiki treatments, and he would fall asleep. She would even come to the house sometimes, and as soon as she would start, he would fall asleep. And it was just a gift for him to be able to sleep. He was in so much pain, and like I said, he refused the pain medicine. But bone pain is some of the worst pain you can have, and the Reiki was amazing for him. And through his story and their hard work, lots of their hard work, Reiki is a regular scheduled thing at Levine Children's Hospital for the kids with cancer. They have actually developed an entire department now for supportive medicine. One of the oncology doctors went and got certified for supportive therapies. And so that they have, since BJ, they've developed this whole entire department, music therapy, art therapy, aromatherapy. The Reiki is a big thing. And so one of our first big donations from our foundation was $10,000 to the Reiki program for the kids with cancer at Levine. And it felt like just a big circle, and BJ was totally involved in that whole thing. And I just can't say enough how proud I am of him, and know that he's still around, doing his thing, and making us laugh, and caring for people. He cared about people, and that was some of the things that would hit him the worst when he was in the hospital, was to hear a kid down the hallway not have a parent there with them. And his heart went out to kids like that. And he never his cancer was never a crutch for him, and he cared more about other people than he did himself. And I know he didn't want to ever give up, and I know he didn't want to ever leave us. And so I don't, it's just for us, it's still a fight. It's still it'll be 5 years in March, and he's been not here with us physically, and that's hard. Can't believe it's been that long. It seems like it was yesterday. And but people, this community, like you started saying in the beginning, this community is amazing. There's been several kids diagnosed, and people reach out and do everything they can for the family. And that is huge. That's huge. Through our foundation, we do stuff at his high school. He was technically in 9th grade when he left, and he didn't really get to attend 9th grade there, but he was a student. His jersey hangs on the wall in the gym, retired. And that's the school now that my daughter goes to. And so you never think you're going to be in this spot. Never thought that I would ever lose him that way, with as much as we prayed and as hard as we fought. But still trusting God's plan. There's bigger things that we don't understand, and we won't understand until I won't understand it until I get where he's at. And until then, I'm just doing what I can to help the kids and to raise my daughter to be I really don't have to do much raising now. She's just turned 16, and she's pretty amazing. Her goal is to attend the Naval Academy after high school, and kind of follow what her brother wanted to do, and honor him in that. And very, very, very proud mom.
As well, you should be. And just from seeing everything that you're doing on social media, the hundreds and thousands of people that this foundation has helped, and I like the whole meaning behind the name of it, behind the warrior's name, standing firm. I know that when we go through this and we're praying, we expect a miracle. We look for a miracle, and it's difficult. And I like the fact that you touched on the faith. There's a lot of parents that lose faith. There's a lot of parents that their faith gets stronger, and there's really no right way of handling this situation. Even if you lose faith, it's understandable, because a lot of things you don't understand. And when you touch on the fact that there's things that we don't understand, and we will understand when we get to where our children are, and we will see that, we will. But I, for one, when I get with my daughter, I'm not going to care of any reason. I'm just going to be happy and rejoicing, with her and our Creator at that point, and
yes,
while we're here, we're just doing everything that we can to be able to help all these other families, to be able to help all these other foundations, all these people that need the help. And I do have a lot of parents that have other children, and I'm gonna ask you, and if you can touch on this quickly here, how has obviously it affected Carly, a lot. But how have you been able to help her out through this process, and what has helped and what hasn't helped? We have a lot of parents that perhaps the passing of their child is just recent, and they're trying to figure out how to handle, the other children. So you being 5 years out, and what has helped and what hasn't helped?
Well, so Carly, she's a tough one. While we were in the hospital and she was at a very young age, she was, I don't know who told her, but this is what she took. Someone told her, be strong for your mama. And she took that to heart, and she took that to mean, don't cry, don't ask for things, stay out of the way. And so even years later, it's a tough thing for her to cry in front of me. Even though I keep telling her it's okay to cry, you're strong. Yes, tears don't make you not strong. And so I just try to get her to talk about how she's feeling. She's older now, and she's, I've given her journals, and she's written in journals. I will keep an eye on that, because it's just the two of us, and I need to know where she's at in her head. So if I feel like something's off, I might take a look and see what she's feeling, if she won't tell me. I haven't had to do that in a while. There was a point in time right before, like the summer leading up to when she turned 15, because BJ passed, 2 days after his 15th birthday. Leading up to that day for her was quite difficult. She was not in a very good spot. I wouldn't have wanted to leave her alone. That was how bad I saw that. So we just talked about it. I've always had that open communication with both my kids. We would talk about anything and everything, and how they're feeling. Even if they didn't like something I did, they could come tell me, and we would talk about that. So we've always had that open communication. And so we decided, talking to her about how to get her past her 15th birthday, past, 15th birthday, but 2 days after her 15th birthday. So what we ended up doing was, she wanted a tattoo to honor her brother. BJ wanted one too. He was planning on getting one. You can't get a tattoo in North Carolina until you're 18. Doesn't matter if a parent approves of it or not. There are other states who do, and we called around after we found that out. We were looking for a place that would do it. I ended up driving her to Alabama to get a tattoo on the day she turned, the day that that BJ left, that she was passing. That day is the day she got her tattoo. And it meant everything to her. That some people might look at that and say that was bad parenting on my part. Well, no, that was us getting through something that not many people have to worry about getting through. Anyway, just open communication, talk to them, let them see you upset. They'll get validity in that. Don't try to hide it. You say, I'm really missing, I tell her, I said, I'm really missing BJ, and, we'll talk about that. And, she'll, there are times when I look at her and I can see it in her face, and I'll practically make her tell me, and then we'll talk about it. And then we'll try to make the mood lighter by doing something. He would totally pour cold water over the shower on her, or whatever, to make her scream or laugh or whatever. So I try to do those things. Something, not tossing cold water over the shower on her, but I try to make her laugh, like BJ would if he was here. Try to lighten the mood, and but yeah, it's tough. I mean, everybody's different.
Yeah, everybody's different. Everybody, grieves differently. And one thing that I've told, a lot of people, including parents that have gone through the same thing, is that it's okay to be not okay. It's a certain part of our lives is never going to be okay for the rest of our lives, and it's okay. It's okay to be that way. You don't owe anybody an explanation, and only the people that have gone through what we have will fully understand. And that's how I've taken it. Sometimes I might come across rude, but if you haven't walked in our shoes, then you will not know what it is like, and consider yourself being blessed. And again, another thing that I touched upon and we were speaking about faith is that, as far as me and the way I see it, and I've had such a difficult time, and it's been just horrible, especially right now during the holidays. But and one thing that I tell people as far as my story is that I was praying for a miracle, and I was praying for healing, and that healing did come. And I say the same for BJ. The miracle and the healing did come, maybe not the way that we were expecting it or wanting it, but they're
Right.
healed. They're 100% healed right now, and they are waiting for us. And just like one doctor told me, you know what, Joel, we are all terminal. Just some of us are going to finish the race before others.
Right.
And that just, opened my mind to a lot of other things, Michelle. Well, thank you so much. But before we finish, if you've seen the other episodes, I just want to ask you, what advice would you give other parents that are going through the same thing that we are, and parents that have perfectly healthy children, and any last words that you want to leave us with before we finish here?
Um, for parents that still have their kids here, I don't think that you could be any better than being present in each moment. They're not with you that long. You get, pretty much 18 holidays, 18 birthdays. Um, and yeah, they get on your nerves or they mess it up and things, but they're not here with you that long. And so I'm big on being present in the moment. And parents that are going through the loss, um, I honestly, I don't know. Just, there was a point in time where I wasn't doing very well at all. I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to leave Carly, but I didn't want to be here either. And I could feel that downward spiral, and it scared me. And I finally blurted it out to my best friend. I was like, I don't want to be here. And she's like, oh no, you need to go talk to somebody. And at the time I was seeing a counselor through hospice, and she's like, you need to get in there with her now. So I think she stood there and watched me call her, and you know, that started, more of a deeper digging in of how I really feel. Um, and so, there's a lot of work to do when you're going through something like this. I've done the friend of mine who did Reiki, she also is a biofield tuning practitioner. She would do that energy healing work on me, and did that for like 2 years. And that I credit a lot of my healing on that. So much so that I became a certified biofield tuning practitioner, and offer that to parents through our foundation as well. And as just grief, you know, a healing for grief. And I think you have to search yourself, and really be real with yourself. You got to feel those feelings, but you can't stay there either. You have to experience what you're feeling, and then let it go. Let those feelings go. You'll never forget anything that happened, but if as long as you feel the feelings, and then and are able to let them go, let some of that pain go, you get to a better place. And they say time heals all wounds. I don't know about that. um but I know that I've done a lot of work on myself, for myself, to be a better me, but also to be a better mom to Carly, because I couldn't be what she needed me to be while I was so um in that deep dark hole. I could, it wasn't fair to her either, and I knew that. Um, you just can't if you start to feel that spiral, you've got to get out. You've got to reach out for a lifeline, whether it be a grief counselor, and a good grief counselor, um, or a best friend, somebody that actually just listen to you. You don't have to have somebody responding, as long as you just let it out. You actually feel better. So that would be like my advice, as far as like in the worst of times. Don't keep it in. Don't continue to circle the drain, because there's nothing good down there.
Self-care is very important, and I know exactly what you mean by not wanting to be here. I've been down that road, and I mean, shamefully, well, I don't even want to say shamefully, but I'm still somewhere in that road, trying to find that way. It's difficult, and we were talking a little bit before we recorded, that the second year is the worst, and that's where I'm at right now. And I'm at that feeling right now where I'm just tired. I'm tired, but I know that with God's help and God's grace is, the only reason why I'm still here. And as long as we have God's grace, that's more than sufficient, and it will
That's
always be
absolutely true.
more than
Absolutely
sufficient.
true.
So, Michelle, well, just thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time in talking with us and sharing with us. And you and Carly are a part of this Gold Corner family. I know that some of the families here are your friends as well, but now we're all a family. Like I mentioned, we're broken, but we're broken together, and we're here because God has allowed us to come together. And if it wasn't for this, we would have never met, unfortunately, under these circumstances. But yet we're here, and thank you for all the work that you're doing with the childhood cancer, awareness, for being an advocate, and with the foundation. And with that being said, I just want to say thank you to everybody for joining us on this episode of the Gold Corner. Please check out. I'm going to be tagging Michelle, and I'm going to be also putting all the information of this great foundation, the great meaning behind it. If you have an opportunity, if you're from the North Carolina area or wherever you are in the world, check out this foundation, and all the great work that they're doing to help other families that are going through the same thing or that have gone through the same thing. If God puts it in your heart to make a donation, please feel free to reach out to Michelle, and she will be more than happy to give you any further information. So once again, thank you so much for joining us. And like I tell you every week, remember to live each day to its fullest, because tomorrow is not promised. Let's pray for our family, pray for our children, pray for those other families that are going through it and will be going through it as well. Let's pray for our nation, because we need it now more than ever. And just hold on a little while longer, because we're almost home. God bless you, and we'll see you next week.